Yeah, we'll call the item and then we'll say. It's 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting in order.
Trustee Lawrence?
Here.
Trustee Lawler?
Here.
Trustee Leaflet?
Here.
Trustee Healy?
Here.
Trustee Kittsinas?
Here.
Trustee Malani?
Here.
Mayor Dyer.
Here.
6 o'clock. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the January 19th, 2025 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of January 19, 2026.
Second.
Is there a motion and a second? Any comments or questions about the minutes? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dyer.
Aye.
Any non-scheduled citizens and visitors for agenda-specific public comment?
Any comments? All right, next item.
RFP 25-069 Crystal Tree Water Main Lining Project Award.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawler.
I move to recommend the village board to approve and authorize the execution of a contractor agreement with Aris Inc. of Joliet, Illinois as the lowest cost qualified responsive proposal for RFP 25-069 Crystal Tree Water Main Lining Project for a cost of $7,930,617, plus a contingency of $500,000 for a total not to exceed contract price of $8,430,617.
Second.
Okay. Second, yes.
Leaflet.
Yes, Leaflet.
Is there a motion and a second? Any comments or questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Motion passes. 2026 Public Works Vehicle Purchases.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Leaflet.
I move to recommend the village board approve participation in joint purchasing cooperatives and authorize the approval and execution of a vendor contract with Curry Motors Ford of Frankfort, Illinois via Suburban Purchasing Cooperative Contract Number 207 for the purchase of 2 Ford Transit 250 vans for an amount not to exceed $106,792, and authorize the approval and execution of a vendor contract with JX Peterbilt of Bolingbrook, Illinois via Sourcewell Contract Number 032824-PMC for the purchase of 3 Peterbilt 548 chassis trucks for an amount not to exceed $395,394.87.
There's a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? George, Joel, I guess all known, all planned?
Yes, it is part of our capital plan that we put together for these replacement of these vehicles.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
2026 Police Department Vehicle Purchases.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawrence.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve participation in joint purchasing cooperatives and authorize the approval and execution of a vendor contract with Sutton Ford of Matson, Illinois via Sourcewell Contract Number 081325 for the purchase of 2 Ford Expedition Special Service Vehicles and 2 Ford Bronco Sports for an amount not to exceed $183,577.88, and authorize the approval and execution of a vendor contract with Sutton Ford of Matson, Illinois via the State of Illinois Joint Purchasing Contract Number 22-416 CMS-BOSS 4-B-27256 for the purchase of 6 Ford Explorer police utility vehicles for an amount not to exceed $286,524.
Second.
Is there a motion and a second? Any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
just a quick question. Why the choice of a Bronco Sport? It just seems like a unusual choice.
It's for those specialized units.
Okay.
Are they so secret you can't discuss them, Joel?
Yeah, no, it's
Well,
understandable.
It's just, it's there to use to find the bad guys.
Okay. More of an updated version. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
A little larger for their needs.
Just any other comments or questions? Chief or Joel, some of these are obviously related to going 12-hour shifts and expanding the force, right? So there's replacement and then expansion, correct?
Yes, for both, yes.
If there's no other questions, call the roll, please.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
2026 legislative priorities.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawrence?
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the 2026 legislative priorities.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Why don't we open it up for discussion on this, because there's also some additional recommendations from some of the trustees. So before we jump into the conversation, just briefly, we're spending village resources to have 2 lobbying firms represent us in Springfield, and I think it's already paying dividends. And this is about, I think, making sure that we stay focused on Orland Park priorities, the things that affect us directly. So let's have the conversation. I'll open it up.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy?
I have a question for George. George, in the last meeting, did you ask all the trustees for a written recommendation of their ideas for this?
I offered it up, yep.
You wanted everybody in writing, send you an email about what that was? Well, I'd like to chastise the rest of not Mayor Dodge, because I think his ideas are already in the thing, but all the other trustees. I think out of respect for the office of the village manager, you don't even respond with nothing or no. I'm the only one that responded to this. And this includes everybody, even at the far right, Cindy and Mike. Is anybody, I mean, I feel you have a responsibility to come up with new ideas. And if you don't have any ideas, just say, I don't have any ideas. Be transparent about it. And now I put the ideas out. Go ahead and make fun of my ideas, because I'm the only one that seems to be thinking in some other pictures. That's just one comment. My second comment is, as you could, I hope you've read through my things. One of the things I want to do is repeal the Safety Act. I think that directly affects the people here as far as safety. It's my understanding that, I can't speak for our police chief, but the other police chiefs that I've run into all seem to hate the Safety Act. They're all against it. If police are against it, we're giving the police everything we want. Why wouldn't we be for that? I mean, you're kidding yourself with safety with this. Yeah, there's a couple good things in the Safety Act, but it's predominantly bad. And for our police officers, it puts them in personal liability. I don't know why anybody would be not for that, where it's for the good of the village and the safety side, and the good for our employees to protect them from the unreasonable claims that can arise out of the Safety Act. The other ones, I mean, we're supposed to be transparent. You know where I stand on all these issues, but based on my theories. I wish you all were more transparent with your ideas. So next time, please give the office of the village manager the respect it is, and please respond when he asks for a response. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani?
I don't mean to be up here and get into a pissing match with Trustee Healy, but to be quite honest, I did read his things and I had agreements with them. Second of all, I did give responses at the last meeting, and George took them into consideration when he rewrote the draft. So before you come up and start accusing people of stuff not knowing the facts, and before you hear everybody's comments, wait until you hear everybody's, because I think that's the respect that we all should get up here, because we are all part of this board. So I didn't mean to disappoint you by not sending something in. I did. We had a discussion about it in our last board meeting, and I was going to read the comments again to get them on the record. So would you like me to do that for you?
Mr. Malani,
Hang on, Trustee Healy. Trustee Malani, I think that was a rhetorical question. He still has the floor. Please proceed.
So yes, I would like to move on and read my comments on this agenda item. So first of all, I mentioned this the last time. I agree with a lot of the priorities that we put out as far as legislative priorities for Orland Park, because I will think that they're a benefit. But, the original idea was supporting a tier 2 pension system, and I kind of had some feelings about that, right? And I think we have modified the verbiage a little bit, but I used a teacher as an example because I just happen to have 2 of them at home, and I know a little bit about this whole system, unfortunately. I get to hear about all of the great differences between tier 1 and tier 2, because my son will probably end up being under tier 2. But a 25-year-old teacher today would have to teach for 42 years to receive their full benefit. So life expectancy is increasing. I know that. We're going to be working longer. I mean, Social Security will probably be bumped out here in a few years to be longer. I mean, these things happen as we continue to live longer. But when you look at a teacher, how much enthusiasm would that teacher have dealing with their day-to-day activities, continuing to adapt to learning initiatives, and actually enjoying their work after 42 years? I think you kind of fall into this, I'm just doing this to get my job done and go home, right? I don't think I'd be enthusiastic about doing the same thing for 42 years. So my thoughts around this is looking at the salary caps as well. I think they need to be addressed, but instead of thinking we should go with tier 1 or we should go with tier 2, why don't we come up with a hybrid approach and possibly align it? Right? How do we bring both of them together, use the best of both, and also look at how can we align better with Social Security benefits, even though teachers in Illinois don't receive it unless they've had a second job, and they were able to accumulate enough credits to be able to achieve Social Security, right? So I think a more logical step, instead of picking one or the other, let's have actual reform, bring them together, and do what's best for the overall community, not just a certain group. So the second thing that I found on the legislative priorities that I don't know if I necessarily agree on the idea of spending time on generating funds for the building of an additional athletic facility. But if we end up building one, let's have it subsidized in a way that we don't have to sink money into it. I'm not on board with the idea of doing it, but if we need to, let's find a way to fund it. Let's not put all the money into it. And to Trustee Healy's point, the Safety Act. As we continue to invest in public safety, I agree with the idea of driving potential sources of funding to help us alleviate some of the pressures that our officers have across the state. The mandatory body cameras, the pressures of the Safety Act, all come from the state, and they're unfunded. So yes, we need to go out there and we need to lobby and we need to push for funding for these things. We need to look at how we can actually drive repealing the Safety Act or drastically changing it. There's got to be a way that we can reach a common ground. I mean, even as we're looking at our emergency management presence that we have here, we have something on the agenda later tonight to look at something that we're going to try and get fundings for a piece of equipment, right? So if we do things like this, it's going to help us be more successful, increase our public safety, and use our money wisely, right? So those are my comments for tonight. I'm sorry I didn't put them in writing and make sure everybody got them because I had previously shared them, but those are my thoughts for this evening. So.
Mr. Mayor? Mike, I appreciate that you're calling me out on that, but, George did ask for it in writing, and I thought, well, I'll just look for the emails and see what happened. I don't think I should be expected to match the previous meetings listing with the current year's. I don't have the time to do that. I apologize. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? First of all, we talked about this when we were hiring. We voted to hire 2 consultants, and we gave a bunch of our reasons for why we were voting, for this, to lobby, to get infrastructure, to rebuild relationships that I feel that were diminished in the last 8 years. So some of my ideas were already in there, and George had them as well. Now, Trustee Healy, I agree with a lot of what you're saying here as additional, things to talk about with our lobbyists. But, a lot of these are hot button issues in the state of Illinois and every state at this point. And my main concern right now is what can we do that's going to help Orland Park get money for our roads, for our parks, and some of the other things that we're doing. So my support is to focus on those things. I'd be more than happy to sit down and have a conversation with you about some of these other issues and how we can reach out to some of our legislative members, such as our state representatives, to have the conversation with them and say, are we repealing some of these? Are we amending some of these so that it'll work better for everybody? Because just going in there and demanding we change them right now is going to get us nowhere. This is a democratic state, and they have a supermajority. So yes, these are important things, and we need to open up the conversation with them. But right now, I want to focus on, our roads here in Orland Park. I want to focus on our parks here in Orland Park. I want to focus on our pensions. And that's where my support is on this.
Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Healy?
I just want to respond to John. John, thank you for those comments were good. I just want to say that as far as how we deal with these lobbyists, I am not a pro at dealing with lobbyists. I do not have much respect for any lobbyist. As I recall, and it's just ringing in my head that during our previous discussion about the lobbyists, when I mentioned that they were connected with Madigan, it was like, well, boy, this would be great. They'll be connected to all the deals and all that stuff. I think that's a reflective of a poor ethic, and that, that we have to hang around with the guys who cut corners and all that. I would rather have my dignity and do without money. And I think most of the people who follow the Christian Judeo society would rather have their dignity and honesty rather than the quick buck. But I'm sure I'm in a minority. Thank you.
Are there any other trustees who wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas?
just speaking of lobbyists, I want to know how our lobbyists are going to interact with the Illinois Municipal League, who is one of our biggest lobbyists, and the Mayor's Council. How will they work with them, but yet be specific to Orland Park? And then secondly, how do we measure their success? What plan is in place with our legislative agenda?
Yeah, those are great questions. IML is an incredible organization that Illinois Municipal League is a great organization, and they do a lot of great work. Our lobbyists will be working with them. They draft proposals that actually get sent to the state. So, and usually those proposals align with what municipalities are looking for. So it's going to be a very important interaction. As far as how do we measure success, I think the lobbyists have been, well, quite frankly, very successful so far. We, since May 1st, the state has allocated $40 million to Orland Park roads. Of that, $10 million was allocated to the Southwest Highway 143rd Street project. We are now funded, fully funded for that project. The only remaining elements are what are village-related infrastructure, water lines and such. Had we not gotten that additional 10, it was coming out of village coffers. And honestly, we don't have it. So we've been, since May 1st, it's just been incredible. And that's really how we're gonna, we're not gonna, there's no real, I don't think anybody believes that this entire legislative priorities list is gonna be accomplished. And each one has a different weight. I think the ones that are going to be the most important are the ones where there are going to be checkbook issues.
But in all due respect, George, the lobbyists weren't here in May. They came in November. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the 10
But these have
million,
been working on for a while. I know Chris Sheed and staff were working very hard on a lot of those items that came through since May.
yeah, that,
I'd like to
there,
thank our staff.
absolutely, it's actually three parts. It's not just the lobbyists. You're absolutely right. There has been a refound effort for public outreach. The village has done an incredible job on that. The staff, Krashid and his staff, they do an incredible job. There's probably a more technical term, but they nag a lot, and that works. And then the final element is our lobbyists, putting Orland Park back on the multi-year programs so that we can actually get funding.
And just to that, about Krashid, how much money has he brought in for our roads? And for the village, just our engineering department? Maybe Krashid can answer that?
Is it 40 million before the 40?
George, since we have been doing it collectively, we have brought in $85 million.
85, there you go.
I feel like we should clap. Thank you, Krashid. Thank you, George.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leaflet.
Yes, just quickly, I think that this last discussion brings up an excellent point. Krashid has been kind of spearheading most of our efforts to get funding. And so I'm grateful that now there is support, so it's not only him applying for the different grants, as well as people from other departments as well. It is also, we have the support of the lobbyists who keep Orland Park in the minds of people who are allocating money around the state. So these are all really valuable things for Orland Park so that we can work, so that we can be more successful in obtaining funding, keeping our own debt load low, spending less of the taxpayers' money on items that we could get assistance from the state on, and then use that money for other things that are even more local. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawrence.
I'd like to step back just a little bit. When I looked at these originally, I noticed that we have guiding principles that sort of set the basis for which our legislative priorities, in particular, what they would go after. And in looking at those, it was things like avoiding unfunded mandates, opposing taxes that would hurt us, that sort of thing. But then going into the individual areas, the way we broke them down, infrastructure, tens of millions of dollars to go after infrastructure improvements for roads, for water control in the environment, for parks, that sort of thing. The next one being financial stability. Those were the particular items around what else other than going after money do we need to be considering and keeping it up in mind in our legislators' mind what's important to us as a municipality, not just as a municipality, but as Orland Park and our particular needs. Economic development, another one a little bit along that line, but then also looking at public safety, and this one in particular caught my eye. And I see that as far as public safety, we're going after a number of things and asking our consultants to look for those bills that are progressing through and where these issues are entailed in those bills, that our lobbyists would keep us informed and that they would get our position and advocate for our position on these various items. And in looking at all these items, I thought to myself, this is a huge amount of work, a lot of different items for them to be concentrating on. We're paying them a part-time salary, so to speak, for them to use some of their time to advocate for us in particular. We're not hiring them full-time. To think beyond this package to a lot of other things that maybe are being covered either at the county level. Some of those items on Mr. Healy's list were county level sort of things, or even at the state level, where the Illinois Municipal League would be as an advocate for municipalities in general, and where we could then tag on I see that as a good point for them then to go in particular. They're not going to go, Illinois Municipal League isn't going to say, 143rd Street and Southwest Highway needs some money. That's outside of, it's too small of a thing for them to look at in particular. And so when I looked at this list, I thought, this is a really extensive list. And although I had some ideas in mind, I thought to myself, well, at this point, we don't even know what the bills are that are going to be on the legislative agenda, right? They're not due for another week or so. Some of them may already be out there. But to the extent that our lobbyists, when everything's filed, and then for the next few months, they see what's going on, I imagine they'll inform us. And then they'll ask us, hey, where would Orland Park stand? How do they want us to lobby for you regarding the items that are in progress? It doesn't make much sense for us to go out there and try to advocate for something that's not even in progress. Apologies, I thought I turned this off. I did. Okay. Anyway, that pretty much wraps it up for what my comments are. Thank you.
I think everybody's had a chance to speak. We can continue discussion. There's a motion and a second for the main document, which is the legislative priorities. And my question for the board is, are we generally, Trustee Malani, to your comments about it doesn't require tier 2, and I want to give you a quick update on some conversations on that one. There's a motion and a second about the initially published legislative priorities, and then there's the suggestions from Trustee Healy. And what I wouldn't mind doing, and we could do it before or after we call the motion, is let's go through these one by one. And we might not come to total agreement on these things tonight, and we can certainly keep this up. This was intended to be a living document. So if 2 weeks from now, we take another run at this and we have another discussion, there's no reason why we can't update this, which is, I think, so I just want to be really clear. We're not writing this in stone tonight. This is a series of intents. So we should hold that thought for a moment. Let's come back to the main question in just a second. Well, Trustee Malani was at the legislators' breakfast sponsored by the Southwest Conference of Mayors just this past, I think it was Friday. And I've gone to the Southwest Conference of Mayors meetings, and I'm on the legislative committee for the IML. And to address some of the comments, all of these things are additive, right? And the conversation with the tier 2 pensions, and again, I'm just providing an update for the full board, coming out of the discussion, Senator Hastings was there, Senator Cunningham was there, Representative Laha, and a couple of other state representatives that don't represent Orland. And they heard very clearly from all the mayors in the room that we all want to be fair to all the folks who are working for a public pension. So it was not an issue of fairness. It's just, if they make this change without addressing how we pay for it, it's a substantive impact on all of the taxing bodies. And there's no good solution. In fact, Senator Cunningham gave a great update on the fact that there is letters going back to, I think 1917 of people involved in Illinois government saying we have a pension problem. So it's been around for 100 years. And so we made a case. One, the state is claiming at the moment it's a tough budget year. Okay, I think we've heard that a few times, got it. But two, there's no easy fix. So I think what's in here is a pretty soft, it's not calling for block tier 2, because what Trustee Malani, what the Southwest Conference of Mayors, our official COG, is saying to the legislators, and they've heard it from all of us, all the mayors individually. We've talked to them. We've brought 4 of our state legislators out to meet Orland, rebuild our relationships, was everybody wants to be fair, but we need to be clear on how we're going to pay for this, because the minute you do it for public safety, which is police and fire, then you're going to have to do it for all the other public sector workers. And that's an open, active conversation going on in Springfield. And I think, and this is preliminary, George, what was our number?
Yeah, so, I mean, and there's a lot of scenarios that have been tossed around in the past, whether, just eliminating tier 2 becomes tier 1. I think under the kind of the standard scenario, it's about a $12 to $13 million hit for the village. They've also talked about extending the off-ramp, extending the fully funded and not fully funded. I think there's 5 options out there. But just generally, it's about 12 to 13 million. If this is just for police, if Tier 2 receive the same benefits as Tier 1.
And so ongoing discussion, and your points are well made. And so back to the original proposed language, it was sustainable public pensions. I too, Trustee Milani said to our state reps at that meeting on Friday, I said, I can dream the impossible dream and hope for comprehensive pension reform. Unfortunately, got a chuckle in the room, but I think everybody understands the seriousness of the problem for Illinois. So when we get ready to vote, to me, the question is on this initial set of priorities, right? It's a living document. We'll keep updating this, but we can call that vote now, or we can go through Trustee Healy's recommendations kind of one by one, and we'll just do an informal consensus on whether or not we want to incorporate them, or we take Trustee Healy's comments separately and get more details and think about them in a week or two. I'm fine either way. Happy to discuss them, try and roll them in tonight, or take them in a week or two after everybody gets a chance to come back and say, I understand the spirit, but it's not going to work. So just looking for a rough, loose consensus from the board on how you want to proceed. We have an active motion and a second for the initial priorities, and we've got some proposals. Trustee Milani's comments about Tier 2, I think the language hopefully is soft enough to get us there, and we can nuance that. And how do you guys want to talk about Trustee Healy's questions? Do you want to tackle them now, one by one?
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Milani?
I was just going to, first off, the Tier 2, is, like I said, I think the wording here makes more sense because it's how do we best do this, right? So that's kind of my point was how do we take the best of both? Because I think both plans have advantages, right? But there's disadvantages of both too. So it's like, how do you find the common ground, right? So I think that's kind of what our wording is there. But I do agree. I mean, let's at least listen to Trustee Healy's comments. And I mean, I think there are some valid points there. And I don't think we'll agree with all of them, but I think, that's what we're up here for, to have a discussion. So I think let's at least have the discussion. If we find it's going too long, we can
move it along.
Table it for another night, and we continue the discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawrence?
I have a question. So we have general statements here, but there's no detail in what this really means exactly. These seem to be several of them, very complex issues that, in my mind, for me to vote yes or no, I would need to know what it is that we're voting on. So, for example, repeal the Safety Act. Well, if we were saying something to the effect of investigate improving the Safety Act, that would make more sense to me personally. I would be more comfortable voting on something like that rather than just repeal the Safety Act. And because for one thing, we're up against a lot of other voting entities that if we put our time to it, it just may be without any real benefit. And how many other million things do we have to do to help our village to run better?
It's a valid point, right? So I guess the question is, do we want to go through these one by one? Do we want to ask Trustee Healy to come back with, some of these are pretty specific. Repeal is repeal, right? That's pretty straightforward. So do we want to run through these quickly to just get a sense? We don't have to take this tonight. We could just vote on the active motion, which is the core. I'm almost finished, Bill. We could just kind of run through these. So I'm comfortable either way. Trustee Healy?
I have two comments. First of all, I have a Tier 2 comment too. I'd like to get that out of the way since you discussed it. I haven't done that much research on Tier 2. I don't have an opinion on how it should be handled. And I would trust your judgment, believe it or not, on with your knowledge and your conference, the deeper knowledge that you have. I trust that you're going to do a good job with that, doing the best you can with a bad situation. But anyway, I just want to make that point. As far as these notes, I mean, I'd be happy if I sat down with George and maybe elaborated a little bit more on where it could use more elaboration. And if anybody else has any other suggestions, maybe we could add those too.
No, Trustee Healy, appreciate that, right, in the spirit of doing this. So maybe we'll loop back in a second here and approve the core list. We can just do this as repealing the Safety Act, if I understand it right. And George, let's have the legislative team get us an update on some of these issues. I'm pretty sure in Springfield parlance, there's already trailer bills that are happening with safety that may correct some of the things that we're all concerned about. So let's get an update on that one. Repeal the Trust Act, I don't think there's any talk in Springfield right now about doing that, so that's gonna be a pretty tough putt. The voter education, that's typically handled by the clerks, right? And then the township issue, I'm pretty sure there's already power in the state law already to do that. And I just want us to be careful. So, Bill, what we can do without hopefully violating OMA is flow some additional, now that you've seen Trustee Healy's list, my ask of the board members is flow some comments back to George, and maybe we take this list up in 2 weeks at the next committee of the whole, specifically to go after Trustees Healy's recommendations. Everybody can say, I like this, I don't like that, here's a thought, and we can go from there. And then George, I'd like you to get some additional feedback from the legislative team, because I know a lot of suburban mayors and the DuPage Mayors and Managers Association, I believe, Southwest Conference of Mayors, South Suburban Mayor, et cetera, everybody is telling the legislators how much needs to be improved in the act that formed NEDA, the transit agency, as well as the parking legislation that went along with it, which could have a really detrimental impact on the suburbs. So they're hearing that loud and clear from across the suburbs. So I guess my suggestion for the board, if you're comfortable with it, is we'll call the main motion, which is the original set. Everybody understands it's a living document, and then let's bring this back in 2 weeks and everybody could submit some more ideas. Some of these things are gonna be tougher putts than others, and we don't wanna take them on, because some of these are already, potentially out there in state law. Everybody comfortable with that approach?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Healy, does that suffice for what you're trying to accomplish?
It suffices plenty, Mr. Mayor.
Cool. All right, so there's a motion, a second?
Second.
No, there is a motion, a second for the original motion. Does anybody want us to reread the motion, or it's in the Legistar? It's moved to recommend to the village board to approve the 26 legislative priorities. And then, George, you understand, we want to bring it back in 2 weeks, and hopefully everybody on the board submits you comments or ideas.
And they can be verbal. We can talk, so you can just call me or whatever. It doesn't have to be by email.
Mike?
On some of those, there are portions of the state law that apply, especially township. Can I work with you?
Yeah.
And so the board knows this is probably not a function of the municipality, and here's why.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's, I'll call the roll in a second. I think that's kind of an important thing for us to consider is when we vote for these, we're effectively saying this is the official position of the Village of Orland Park on behalf of the people of Orland Park. So some of these things are worthwhile things to think about from an overall perspective, but I want to make sure we're all careful with our legislative team carrying our business card, so to speak, in Springfield. They're speaking on our behalf. We're speaking on behalf of the people of Orland Park. So we'll have to put that to a vote. So with that, please call the roll.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge?
Aye.
Passes. Ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 16, Section 1-16-7 of the Orland Park Municipal Code, incorporating changes pertaining to responsible bidder ordinance, the RBO.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawrence.
I move to recommend to the village board to adopt an ordinance entitled Ordinance Amending Title I, Administration, Chapter 16, Procurement, Section 1-16-7, Construction, Bidding, and Contracts, establishing criteria for the determination of a responsible bidder for village construction projects.
Second.
So motion, a second. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas.
I guess if, George, if you could explain how this came about and why is it needed?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to ask Brandy and Christina to come on up. Brandy is our purchasing coordinator, and Brandy will introduce Christina as well.
Good evening, Mayor Dodge.
The microphone, Brandy.
You got to get much closer to the microphone, Brady.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Dodge, village clerk and trustees, village manager's office. I would like to take a moment and introduce Christina Warnick from Laner Muchin. She is our experienced knowledge person for responsible bidder ordinance, and I'll give her a second to introduce herself.
Good evening. As Ms. Watson mentioned, my name is Christina Warnick. I'm a partner with the firm of Laner Muchin. We're located in Chicago. Just by way of background, I have a kind of split labor-life background. I started life as an attorney for a very large, prominent construction labor union, and now represent management side. So I have experienced kind of both sides of the aisle relating to specifically construction labor issues. I've both drafted RBOs on the union side and drafted and defended them from the village's standpoint, including issues such as what's construction, what's the applicability of prevailing wage, and I've had the pleasure of working closely with the village for the last couple of months, letting your RBO live and breathe, which is why you're seeing the amendments that you have today.
And before, just as a recollection, the village board introduced the RBO a few months back. And the whole point of the RBO is we want the best contractors for our contracts. And we also want to use our ability to encourage contractors to be partaking in apprenticeship training programs. The village board previously has indicated that the apprenticeships programs, especially where we are right now, where we're located, we have great training programs all around us. So the RBO encourages that. We're here because there are just minor cleanups that need to happen to that, because we've gone through it now a couple of months, and we've learned where we just have to make some tweaks. And so, Brandy, Christina, if you just want to just show those tweaks.
Okay. So as George just kind of mentioned, this was adopted on September 2nd, and the purpose of the RBO was to promote fair, open, and competitive bidding, establish clear standards for vendor responsibility, protect taxpayer dollars by ensuring qualified vendors, and protect the village's interests by promoting quality workmanship, worker safety, fiscal responsibility, and compliance with applicable laws. The key criteria to this was that it would apply for public works projects that are $25,000 or more, and the vendors must demonstrate proper business licensing and compliance, satisfactory record of past performance, proof of insurance and financial responsibility, participation in apprenticeship and training programs where applicable, and adhere to all federal, state, and local laws. So the changes that we are bringing forth tonight is based on some of the communication that we've had with vendors, just different questions from departments, and just to have it where it reduces the amount of questions that they may have. So we are clearly identifying that RBO applies to any vendor, service provider, contractor, or person seeking award of a public works contract under Chapter 1-16-7, construction bidding and contractors, with the value of $25,000 or more, not just ITBs, but also will include RFP, RFQ, sole source, and joint purchasing. So that would be any project, so not just bidders. I'll let Christina take the mic.
You'll notice the next couple of items are frankly very standard in RBOs and really centered around lifting some of the administrative burden off of the internal group and putting it with the contractors, which is where it should lie. So the next item here in the amendment is that the contractors themselves exclusively bear responsibility for submitting the documentation to show that they are compliant with the RBO and then technically responsible by ordinance definition. In addition, and this goes back to the taking some of the administrative burden off of the village and onto the contractors where it should lie, inadequate or incomplete submissions, again, this may seem obvious, but is typically part of an RBO, may result in a determination that a contractor is not responsible. And then piggybacking on that some more, contractors also have an ongoing obligation to report changes. So let's say a contractor has reported full compliance, but that changes, the onus is on the contractor to report that change to the village within 14 days.
Also, contractors must self-perform at least 25% of the service identified in public work contract. And what that means is that vendors can't come on board and be awarded a contract and then continue to subcontract it out. The purpose is to make sure that we are bringing on vendors that are highly qualified, that have gone through this additional training, that are part of the apprentice program that graduates at least 5 individuals per year. So this helps to prevent that from happening. So the person themselves that wins the award for the project also must complete at least 25% of the project. And then the waiver of authority, which is already a part of the code, we just wanted to make sure that it was acknowledged again, where the board has the opportunity by majority to vote to waive certain RBO compliance provisions based on the village's needs, if it's in favor of what we need to do in order to move forward on a project. So we just wanted to reiterate that as well in the code itself in this section. Are there additional questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas?
Yeah, I have a question. I just have a concern with such a low amount. It's a lot of money, but $25,000 for a job. Does that not rule out some of our small local contractors, like a family-owned business? I guess, what does it mean that they participate in the U.S. Department of Labor or Illinois registered apprentice programs, including graduation benchmarks? What if we had a local concrete contractor? It's a family-run business. My concern is by that low benchmark, that it's going to be all the big players in it. It's not going to be our local contractors bidding on jobs.
No, that's a very fair question. For the most part, what we've seen so far, the $25,000 is our threshold across the board for anything that has to go out for solicitation. Again, this is where RBO could be waived depending on the type of scope that is considered in the project. So it doesn't necessarily completely eliminate them. It just also, that's a consideration as part of who would win the award. A lot of the construction projects are higher in cost for what we have been seeing as of recent and just kind of our history. So something that's a little bit smaller, again, that can be waived if, depending on who comes on board and provides a solicitation response, that's something that can come to board and board could waive that. For a lot of the construction, though, it does seem to be a higher ticket cost, and that would mean that probably the mom and pops may not necessarily even put a proposal in based on that. But everything can still be considered. It doesn't officially eliminate them, but that is part of the selection process that we would want to be in compliance with RBO. Did you have anything you want to?
Yeah, so to your point, the RBO only applies to contracts that are $25,000 or more. So the more limited contracts, the lower amounts, the ones where you would tend to see mom and pop organizations that have, lower cash flows that can support smaller projects, they wouldn't be subject to the requirements of the RBO. That's why you have the $25,000 threshold to start. So these lower construction contracts, again, to your point about smaller companies, mom and pop shops, lower capabilities, they're not subject to these requirements. They're carved out entirely.
Well, $25,000 in the world of construction is nothing now. So, if it were 250, I could see, but 25, you can do flat work on a single family residence and exceed that threshold. So that's my concern. So when you say participate, if you had a family-owned business that hired somebody from a licensed apprentice school, does that satisfy that provision?
It does. So participate means that the company generally participates in an apprenticeship program. That means any employee. It actually doesn't necessarily mean the employees that are performing work on the project. If the company generally participates in an apprenticeship program, they satisfy the RBO requirements. And the requirement is only that the program graduate 5 apprentices in each of the last 5 years. Not that the contractor themselves have 5 apprentices who graduate each year. It's applicable to the program that they participate in.
Okay, I do have a concern. I want that on the record for small businesses. It's a low threshold for any construction project job. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy?
Thank you for coming out today. This lawyer coming out here. I mean, I think it's special that you came all the way out here for this thing, and I appreciate your efforts. But my question is, it seems to me, from my working with contractors, that this change appears to be very much, and I'll take the apprenticeship word out and just call it what it is, unions. And this is more pro-union, which goes along with the trend only in Illinois and a couple other states. Across the country, where productivity is very high and all that, it's more non-union. And I agree with Trustee Katsinas that this is a very low threshold, and I would call it anti-small business, is just my humble opinion. And the unions have big sway here in Illinois, and they are major contributors to a lot of people. So it's you know, I just think that this is just another rock on the pile of on the back of the small independent small businessman. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawler?
It seems like we have a couple of concerns over the threshold. George, is it possible to raise the threshold to, let's say, 40,000? I mean, are we stuck at 25? Is there a reason why it has to be 25?
That's a good question. So it's for operational consistency. What we do, what Brandy does, and all of the departments is we have a very kind of a sophisticated system for putting out invitation to bids, RFQs. Our threshold is 25,000, and it's been 25,000. I believe it was 2020. I think if we raise our overall purchasing threshold, because if we have a purchasing threshold that's different than an RBO, we're asking for problems. We're going to forget something. Something's going to get missed. So if we're going to raise the RBO, I think we should raise our village threshold. Now the threshold is, when do we go out for a competitive solicitation? That's what $25,000 means. Under $25,000, typically the board will not see it because we have a process, 3 quotes, 3 proposals, or a sole source form that we have to go through. So I think if we were going to raise the threshold on the RBO, we should have a corresponding purchasing threshold just for operational consistency.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Katsinas?
I think something internally we should do so those 2 figures could be different, because I would like to see, Trustee Lawler asked a very good question. I think that threshold should be raised, but that not necessarily should indicate then when we go out to bid. You know, I understand it might be a little more paperwork or hard to follow, but, you know, because how I understand it, we're going to have an additional firm now looking at these contracts, correct?
No, that's the whole point of this exercise. The whole point is we want to avoid having to constantly be asking questions on this. So these changes are specifically so that we don't have to have a lot of go back and forth with the attorneys. We're going to have fine tuning and we're going to have questions, but not as much as when it originally started, right? Because it was we were still learning from it.
Well, I'd like to see that threshold even increased higher to 100,000 to support our local businesses.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with John's and Cindy's things, but I'd also like to say, for the construction contractors, in the past 2 years, they've had to deal with tariffs, which sometimes doubled the material cost. This has nothing to do with the contractor itself, it's the material. You just get a purchase order in the contract and buy it. I mean, those materials for $25,000, they keep eating up more and more. You're only talking about $5,000 or $10,000 of actual labor in there. So it doesn't seem, in contracting, that's significant to me. And the prices have been going up and up for a lot of things, and it's a turbulent world, especially for material costs of aluminum, especially, and is what I've seen. So I just please consider that you're not just talking about what you're paying the contractor and his profit. You're talking about material costs keep going up and eating more and more of that $25,000. So it's just, I think that's why we deserve to bump it up a bit. Thanks.
Any other comments from the board? Question. You probably have seen this in other towns. What number do they use?
I did do a pretty extensive survey before coming in. I actually looked at roughly the 6 municipalities that were closest inside size, $25,000 to $30,000 was roughly the figure that was hitting in municipalities that were close in size to the Village of Orland Park.
Okay, and then if I heard you right, that the requirements on apprenticeship are relatively generous in terms of how one could qualify for being part of an apprenticeship program. And I, for one, personally think America needs more highly skilled workers building things, but that's another conversation for another day. The other thing you said, and I just want you to clarify it for this board, that if you have a $45,000 piece of concrete flat work, to stylize an example, we're not saying they can't bid, and we have the right to kind of adjust or waive, correct? So will you talk through the mechanisms that this ordinance has?
All this is a set, this is to build in some framework and parameters as to what the village determines responsible. The criteria, the things that you find important when determining when a bidder is both responsive and responsible. And within that criteria, one of the many things listed is this apprenticeship component. To address the apprenticeship program, I think it's natural and logical to say, well, apprenticeship generally equates with union. It's true. Most unions do have apprenticeship programs. They're typically, it's a fundamental concept here in the Chicagoland area to have a joint apprenticeship program that's union sponsored. However, if you look at the Department of Apprenticeships heat map of apprenticeship programs, there are probably an equal number, if not greater, now they're smaller, apprenticeship programs that apply to non-union firms. There's a very large, it's called ABC, non-union kind of outfit that has apprenticeship programs that non-union contractors can participate in so that they can show that they are training their staff, that they are getting the kind of upkeep and training that they need, and that they are responsible in terms of these kinds of ordinances. So back to your original point, this is just one of many criteria that the village thinks is important and valuable in determining whether a bidder is responsible. It's also why we put that fail-safe made clear that in the village code, it does say that the village can determine that to waive some of the requirements of the procurement code. We're being clear that that does apply to the responsible bidder ordinance as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Leafblad?
I do have a question. As I'm listening to you describe that, what I'm hearing is just continuing, it's like we want a continuing education. We want bidders who are continuing to educate themselves and their employees on how to do their jobs better, how to use equipment as equipment changes and becomes more sophisticated. So it's like continuing education that we would expect out of anybody, pretty much in any profession, to continue to learn about their craft. And so it's not really a pro or anti-union, it's really just all about, it's about promoting, it's about attracting bidders who care to remain informed and current on on their own craft.
That's correct. And that, so to take the flat work example, that someone who, for example, performs concrete work, if they're saying that, you know, I'm responsible and I'm able to perform concrete work, I've gone through, or I put my employees through an apprenticeship that says I've hit these established benchmarks like OSHA training, like you know, other kinds of safety training that are important to that kind of work. So it means that the people who show up at the work site have been trained in essentially the basics of the trade.
And for example, if there's an advanced material that could do a job better than what's been used for 10 years prior to that, staying current on their craft and on their business would mean that that bidder would be aware of the best options for us, as opposed to just doing the same old thing they always did with really no concern or understanding for, you know, for advancements in technology or in their own field. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? Trustee Katsinas?
Thank you. You read my mind. Just a quick question for council. You know, I'm always hesitant to waive when we have an ordinance, because an ordinance are our rules. And my concern is if we subjectively, we all agree to waive something, does that not open the village to liability or a claim? It's just a concern I have, like, okay, we're gonna waive it for this person, but we didn't waive it for that person. My concern is that, you know, if we have rules, we follow the rules. if we don't like the rule, we remove the rule, but two, I'm very uncomfortable going against our ordinances because they're there for a reason.
If I could, we've actually already done an RBO waiver. So, we started in September, and you may recall when we did the tennis courts. It's a very specialized, and so this board actually approved a contract with that group, but that group didn't have the apprenticeship program because there is no tennis court apprenticeship program. So this board waived it. So that's a very good example of when that would happen.
Any other comments?
For that one, we only received one actual proposal as well. So it wasn't a big universe to be able to select additional vendors. That was the only vendor that submitted a proposal.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani?
Just going back to when we first approved this back in September, we're talking about how this is kind of pro-union. I see it's pro-labor, whether it's union or not. I mean, we're looking at things in here, we're going to continue to be compliant with prevailing wage. I mean, if we pick someone who's non-union, we have to pay them prevailing wage, so it doesn't matter who we're paying, right? The cost is gonna be the same. I think, participating in the apprenticeship programs, not, to your point, not everybody that's not union says, oh, we're not gonna train our people. We want people to be trained. So, I think there's a balance here. I think, the additional changes here, I think actually tightens this up a little bit more for us than the first version, right? So I think, all in all, I think this is good. I guess the one question that I had, the contractor must self-perform at least 25% of the services identified. So does this mean that they have to do at least 25% and maybe they're gonna sub out the rest? Like we do with construction oversight services or something like that. They'll actually do 25% of the work, but then someone else will do the oversight and then someone else will do another part. How would this work?
That's precisely what it means. And the reason why you have 25% is it also avoids excessive pass-throughs. When a contractor subcontracts work, they mark up a margin. It keeps costs lower for the municipality, for the village. In addition, if you're going to set all these rules and set all these benchmarks of responsibility, what is the point if that contractor who's evidenced that they're responsible subcontracts the work to someone who has not evidenced that they're responsible? So there's a twofold reason here to include the 25% self-performance ratio.
Right. Thank you.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions before we call the roll? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
No.
Trustee Katsinas?
No.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge?
Aye.
Motion passes.
George, thank you. George, what I'd like you to do is keep an eye on these numbers, and I would like to hear from council and from some other towns what number they set this at, because I certainly don't think that Orland Park is anti-small business, so I want to be clear about that. So keep us in touch with the marketplace, if you will. And then if we continue to see hyperinflation, George, I think that, let's, if we picked a number back in 25, you come back in the future and say, listen, you're not getting anything done for 25 grand, and let's make sure that the market understands what we tried to do here in terms of training, responsive, et cetera. Keep that on your radar screen, George.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
RFP number 25-065, Pyro Music Fireworks Award.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawler?
I move to recommend to the village board to approve a waiver of the competitive bid in favor of solicitation of competitive proposals and authorize the execution of a professional services agreement with Meand Inc., DBA Mad Bomber Fireworks for RFP number 25-065, Pyro Musical Fireworks production in the amount of $120,000 in 2026, $105,000 in 2027, and in 2028, for a 3-year total cost not to exceed $340,000, with an option to extend for 2 additional years at an amount of $108,000 per year for 2029 and 2030, for a total contract amount not to exceed $546,000. And authorize the village manager to execute all related contracts subject to village attorney review.
Second.
So motion and a second. Comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani?
Just one quick question for whoever can answer. I know that I think we had some issues with one of the fireworks vendors in the past. I think that's why we're looking for a new one, correct?
That's correct.
And I guess we did a lot of fireworks this year, more than normal. So I was just kind of curious how much we spent in the last 2 or 3 years versus what we're looking to spend in 2026.
The taste of, or the 4th of July fireworks are usually between 30 and 35. The taste fireworks were about 15,000 with the drone show. So this is a significant increase. It's a new vendor. They're the vendor that did the Taste of Orland Park and the Holiday Fest. It was a much better show, probably better than any show we've had, even previous to the last vendor. So we have a very good vendor. This year it's more expensive because of the 250 America celebration. And we're getting a lot more shells with this one. So you can see with the other vendor, it's a substantially less number of shells. That's the same with this new vendor as compared to the vendor we had last year.
Okay, so the total number of events for fireworks then will be, what, about 4 this year?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas?
just to be clear, Ray, the competitive bid process was waived, and the rationale for that was?
Well, the way the language works, and this is from one of the village's attorneys, so it waives the competitive bid, but it doesn't waive the competitive process. So we still did an RFP. We sent this to 6 different vendors, and 2 responded.
So kind of cross-match.
Yeah, so it's just not a bid where you take the lowest bidder. It's an
Sure.
RFP.
And there's a lot of moving parts in it where it's not apples to apples sometimes.
In this one, it's not.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you for clarifying that, Ray.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Lawrence?
I have a question. Does this include a drone show?
The Taste of Orland Park will include a drone show.
Any other comments or questions? I think, Ray, when we first started talking about this, we said, let's go a little bit bigger for America 250, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Lawler.
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet.
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
CPAC Modernization Phase 2 and Orland Park Health and Fitness Club Pool Renovation Projects, RFP 25-001.
Mr. Mayor,
Leaflet?
I move to recommend the village board waive the competitive bid process in favor of solicitation of competitive proposals and approve and authorize the execution of a contractor agreement with Stuckey Construction Company, Inc. of Waukegan, Illinois, as the selected responsive proposal for RFP 25-001-CPAC Modernization Phase 2 and OPHFC Pool Renovation Projects for a cost of $12,160,000, which includes the combined project proposal price of $12,071,000 plus CPAC Modernization Phase 2 alternate number 2 for $49,000 and OPHFC Pool Renovation Project alternate number 1 for $40,000 plus a 5% contingency of $608,000 for a total not to exceed contract price of $12,768,000.
second.
There's a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Trustee Lawler?
So I know this is coming. I got a chance to tour both facilities with Joel a couple weeks ago to look at, the necessary repairs that need to be done. I'm a little concerned, it's a lot of money, and I'm not sure how we're going to pay for it. But I think that moving forward, not so much on CPAC, it is an amenity that is open to all people in the village to use on any given day. Orland Park Health and Fitness, while it's an amenity that we have purchased, it technically is its own separate business that we are running, and it is not open to the taxpayers of Orland Park unless you have a membership. It does have a daily fee, I believe, Ray, but it's a little more expensive than what you would get at, Sportsplex and stuff. So we're basically asking all the non-members in the village to kind of subsidize this, and which is fine. We a lot of people use some of our sports fields, some people use Sportsplex, but looking at the revenues that we're generating out of this as opposed to the expenses, I'm a little concerned that we haven't been, building reserve capital to replace some of these things. I know we've got, I believe, a roof coming in the future as well, which is going to be another couple $1 million. So I think I would like to see a business plan on this going forward to say, what are our expenses, what are our revenues, how are we competitive with other health clubs in the regional area? Are we undercharging, overcharging? So we can look at the expenses and say, how do we start creating an account to put some of these revenues into it every year so we don't have this in the future in 20 years when things start to break down again in the future. So, George, could we get that going?
We will, we'll work with Ray. We have 4 feasibility business plans going on this year. We'll start the RFP process. We don't have it budgeted, so if it's okay, we'll put it into 27 budget.
Okay.
George, just to be clear, you're talking about in the 27 budget, an RFP for an outside firm to help us rethink the business model?
Correct.
Okay, and so don't have a problem hiring that kind of expertise, but I also think that this is exactly the kind of question, long-range question, we want to submit to our rec advisory boards. And I'll come back, don't want to go too far down this road. I want to give the other trustees a chance to comment, but I want to come back to this. Anybody else would like to address this issue?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawrence?
A point of clarification. So Sportsplex, Orland Park Health and Fitness Center, and the Centennial Park Aquatic Center, 3 very different facilities. Each one of them have an option for a resident or a non-resident to buy a membership or to buy a daily pass, or in fact, in some cases, monthly passes to these different facilities. So from that perspective, they are similar. Anyone from Orland Park, from Tinley Park, surrounding village can come and pay an appropriate price to participate, either annual basis, monthly, daily, that sort of thing. So they're similar in that regard. But they're very, very different in the amenities they offer, and obviously in the costs then to maintain them. Likewise, the membership costs or the daily fee costs reflect, both for residents and for non-residents, somewhat of the difference in cost that it takes to maintain these facilities. So just wanted to make that point of clarification. In some ways, they are very similar, but they are very unique facilities. They are different from each other.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas?
if I'm looking at this right, Ray, one provider is almost $1 million less than the chosen one. Is that not correct, Joel?
Yes.
Okay. That's a lot of money. That's a big difference.
The lowest one is a vendor that we recently utilized at Centennial Park West, and we had a lot of trouble with that vendor. That vendor went low last time and was trying to use our contingency right off the bat because they thought that we missed some stuff. Right? So I'm afraid that they're trying to do the same.
Have we had any experience with the chosen one, Stuckley? We have positive?
Positive, very good. They did some more repair work recently. Much smaller project, but excellent oversight, and they're IDPH qualified, so that's huge to make sure we install correctly.
Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee?
I just want to clarify on that, Trustee Katsinas. I did look up all these different vendors, and I did notice that Stuckey does do a lot of municipal pools and exterior stuff, so they have a lot of experience in that.
Very good.
So,
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy?
I think Trustee Lawler's comments are very insightful, and I'm totally I'm totally behind getting that business plan. These prices are just extraordinary for the capital cost. We just got to get a long-term plan for that before we spend this money, I hope. Thanks.
Any other comments? A couple things. So Trustee Lawler and I have spoken about this at length, right? Which is the idea of during 26, I'd prefer, George, if we can find a way to get the assessment phase started in 26.
Got it.
We have a lot of diagnostics and assessments going on, and these facilities, along with the Centennial Park West, we're going to have to do a lot of thinking about what we want to do with these amenities and what we want to do going forward. And so I don't think that this building, these repairs are optional at this stage, correct?
Correct.
They've been put off for a long time, and they're now effectively critical. Is that fair, Joel?
Yes,
And so if one of those filters or tanks gives way, we have a much bigger problem, and I know
we're shutting down a pool.
they're an issue. But more broadly, Joel.
Yes.
Joel. On time and on budget.
Right.
Yes?
I,
Everybody heard the yes?
I feel the pressure, because it's a very short window, and we got to get it done.
And the other thing that I've talked about with a number of the trustees is I don't have a problem making substantive capital investments like this. But just like what we discussed the other day with the HVAC for this building, your team, getting the right technology and with oversight from George, you're going to make it last for 30 years.
Correct.
And so it's a 30-year horizon to basically maintain an asset. That's point number one. Point number two is when we get done with these assessments, we're going to have a deep diagnostic, and we're going to have a conversation with the people of Orland Park, which is what kind of amenities do you want us to continue to provide for you? And oh, by the way, here's the cost, and here's what that means from a business model. And so that is going to be a comprehensive approach to, if we're charging you $10 this year, we're probably going to charge you $12 next year. We just have to be really thoughtful that says, if we've got to pay $12 million worth of debt, for example, over 20 years, what's that time horizon look like from a financial planning perspective for 30 years, and what's the business model? And are people getting value from it? And do we challenge ourselves and rethink the business model on all these amenities? So we've had a number of conversations. So I think tonight, in my mind, it's relatively straightforward. We need to do this. George, I think some of these repairs were anticipated, correct?
Yeah, these were part of the 5-year financials, so the actual debt plan was put in place as part of that 5-year plan.
And then, so we make the investment, staff has the charter, and I think we get on with it. All right, let's call the roll.
Trustee Leaflet.
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence.
Aye.
Trustee Lawler.
aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas. Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye.
Number 8, agenda initiative.
Before we jump into this, George or the attorney, can you catch everybody up on how these types of things are handled under our ordinances? And a little bit of background, and then we can kind of dive into the particulars.
Yeah, so in October 2019, a trustee at the time, actually Trustee Healy, he requested that we reevaluate our agenda management that included our committee structure and the agenda management. So ultimately, in November 18, 2019 board meeting, the board did adopt an ordinance amending committee structure and then the agenda management. As far as the committee structure, it put in place the committee to hold process that we are following now. And then the agenda management includes a process for agenda initiatives. And that's what we're looking at today. So an agenda initiative is any individual trustee can place an agenda initiative on the committee of the whole meeting, like we're doing today, by notifying the village manager before noon on Friday preceding the meeting. Then, so village and legal staff time is restricted until at least 3 trustees vote to move the agenda initiative forward. The categories for agenda initiatives include the expenditure of money, modifications to the village code, formation, modification of village policies, the introduction of an ordinance or resolution, the formation, modification of committees, budget changes, and/or the appropriation of village legal staff time. So it actually, and there's one more step to this whole process. So after an agenda initiative is proposed, if there are 3 trustees that think that there is a value in that initiative, staff is to go back, do calculations, kind of figure out what we're talking about as far as time or cost, and then bring it to a subsequent Board of Trustees meeting, and then the board votes to proceed with that agenda initiative. What we have are 3 submitted initiatives, and they're in the Legistar. The first one is Trustee Healy.
Trustee Healy, this is your proposed motion. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and George, thanks for that explanation. I've read it too, and you're very succinct in saying all that, and I appreciate it. I'll just if I could just read my thing and then maybe add a little context, and because I have a lot of questions. I put forward a motion to recommend the Board of Trustees to appoint a committee to investigate the potential ethics breach involved with the Amazon development approvals. A premature announcement appeared on the website of Inform Orland Park, a PAC, a Political Action Committee, on or about January 2nd, 2026. The Plan Commission meeting, including time for public comment, was held subsequently on January 6th, 2026. The posting being premature was harmful. Not to be overlooked is the implication of having the announcement on a political website whose chairperson is a member of the Plan Commission. The appearance of impartiality and fairness is the core of upholding the public confidence in government. My look at this is that the actions of putting that out there serve to undermine the legislative process. The legislative process is the Plan Commission takes an impartial look at this, and as part of that, they take in, among other things, public comment. And if I'm a member of the public, this posting made it appear that it was a done deal. So why bother coming out to give public comment? A full investigation of the cause of the announcement and a full list of those involved should be developed by an independent committee. The committee could also recommend any penalties or sanctions at their discretion. If I could add a couple more context.
Mr. Healy, hang on one second. You formed a motion, so I'd like to have a second so we can finish discussing this. Is there a second to Trustee Healy's motion, which is printed in your packets?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Healy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to add some context, and I'd like to maybe, I guess, give the clerk some, a couple, what I call exhibits. Okay. The first one is a copy of the Facebook post on Inform Orland Park, which says, "We're excited to share that an Amazon facility is coming to the corner of 159th and LaGrange Road. This new development represents a significant investment in our community, bringing new jobs, economic growth, and expanded opportunities to Orland Park. Stay tuned for more details as plans move forward, and learn more by reading the full article below." It sounds to me, and I have to stop and say, Mr. Mayor, as you know, as you're well aware, I voted for with the majority on the cease and desist letter for the former mayor. I hope that is an indication that I am trying to be fair and do with both sides, but I just call it out for the sense of fairness. Even tonight, I got down on trustee Katsinas. I guess now I've pissed off everybody in this whole place, so. Anyway, I'm just trying to make it certain, I hope you can appreciate my independence and fairness in this. So I'd like to pass this down to the clerk. If anybody wants to see it, the clerk can do
So
that.
Trustee Healy, since you're making some pretty strong statements, you're saying what you're offering up as proof is that there was a post on a political site. When did that happen?
Oh, I believe to the best of my knowledge, on or about January 2nd, 2026. I was provided this information, and I tend to take offense with it. If I can continue?
Please do. You have the floor. I want to make sure you, please, if you will, please present your facts and your case so that the board can have a full discussion about this.
A subsequent post was made on the Facebook account of that Inform Orland Park PAC, where they added the word potentially in the middle of it, like that's going to make a difference. It just seems like they've reviewed it and felt something was wrong with it, and they added the word potentially like that's going to absolve them. You know, if I get caught for speeding, the police don't let me go back and repeat it. The damage was done, and as much as you try and repair it, it's all that. This, my next document here is, bear with me for a second. Is the D1 organization statement that's on the public record at the Illinois Board of Elections. It's the statement of organization for the PAC called Inform Orland Park. Two things to note on here is that Kathy Fenton is listed as the chair of this PAC, and Ms. Fenton is also a member of the Plan Commission that the subject or Amazon was, the Amazon development was going through. So you got to ask yourself, why? I have to ask myself, why would you put this on a PAC? Why don't you just do it on your own Facebook? I mean, why go through a PAC? Otherwise, you know, it's bad enough given a premature announcement on it, but why a PAC? The PAC, I also noticed, was candidates for the committee is supporting or opposing, and the name that they're opposing is People Over Politics. Well, hey, I'm the head of People Over Politics. In fact, I might be the only member of People Over Politics. So then I said, what are they opposing? People Over Politics has been dormant for 9 months. This is not election season. This is that calm place in between that we can all do good for the village and, you know, escape the problems of campaigning. So People Over Politics, you're supposed to be opposing this. This web post has nothing to do with that. It appears to me kind of like a blatant grab for attention that this political party is responsible for bringing the Amazon development here. I don't think that's right. And I have a point of order for our attorney, which I'd like to ask, I guess, at this point. Mr. Attorney, we have the majority of the board here is from a political party that's closely associated, if not connected, to Inform Orland Park, this political PAC. Is it a conflict of interest or anything for them to weigh in and vote or comment on this?
I would say no, but this is the first time I heard of it. So if I had known that was going to be a question, I would have appreciated you let me know so I could give you a memo on that. But typically in all of politics, in all of local and state and all governments, there is a connection to certain parties, and they are not called on to not vote just because there may have been some connection. So my thought is absolutely not, but I'm happy with the direction of the village manager being an Article 5 form of government to do a memo if it need be appropriate.
Okay. No, go right ahead, John.
Mayor, real quick.
John, if Trustee Lawrence, Trustee Healy, are you finished?
Oh, no, I'm just beginning, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I'd like you to be respectful of everybody's time, because so far you've made a lot of serious charges.
I
And so
know,
at
and
some
it's-
point, let's finish your case, so to speak, on this one,
I'll
because
try-
there's
I'll-
responses. Mr. Healy, I'm speaking. Let's be civil to each other. You've made a lot of accusations. I'm trying to give you the floor so you could finish.
I'll try to be brief. Okay, so here is at D2 going out there. The next item is the D1 for the PAC, Inform Orland Park, dated 1/8/26, where Ms. Fenton resigns as the chair of this PAC. What, I mean, I think that's, I just think that's evidence of you know, realizing that this was a bad move to publish this thing. And also, you think she'd resigned from the Plan Commission, but she resigned from the PAC instead. I don't know.
Mr.
So I
Mayor?
guess my questions, Mr. Mayor, have to do with ethics by this village board. Did anyone on this board, and I'd have to say, if it's that party, I
Point of
mean, I'm
order.
not on their mailing list.
Just,
I'm not
Mr.
on-
Healy, there's a point of order.
Point of order. If this is regarding, so this looked like it was about an investigation. If this is going to be about ethics, it should go before the Ethics Commission first. And I mean, if we're going to, you know, if we want to make sure we do things the right way, this is something that should go before the Ethics Commission first. And so that's, I would like, that's my point.
May I continue?
Mr. Healy, I'd love you to continue, because then there's going to be a response.
I'd like to say that, I'd like to know if anybody else noticed this premature posting or were aware of it. One of the things is the ethics is the omission of reporting a violation of ethics. This is just such, to me, such an obvious violation. And I also want to know who in the village is supposed to protect us? Is it, George, the village manager, is supposed to protect the process of the planning commission? And this violation corrupted that process. It undermined the legislative process. Who's supposed to protect us from these ethical violations? You know, I don't know if anybody ever saw this or whatever, but I just take umbrage to this, and I would like to have, because of the political nature of this board and the nature, I think it'd be best to send it to the Attorney General for their, because the Attorney General, as far as from what I've read, can advise us on how we should go forward. I'm afraid it's going to taint the Amazon development, and I don't know what the results are going to be. I'm sorry, I didn't do it.
Mr. Mayor?
Hang on, Trustee Leafblad.
I'm done, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Leafblad.
So the planning commission meeting was January 9th? Or what date was it? 6th?
January
Sorry,
6th.
January 6th. Is there a requirement for any kind of public notice to go out regarding these types of things in advance?
Yes.
How far in advance does the public notice have to go out before the meeting?
There's a range of dates. In this particular case, the notice was for the newspaper on December 22nd.
So-
I have copies of that here.
So by law, you did a public notice in the papers to be consistent with what the law is to provide public notice prior to the commission meeting. Is that right?
That is correct.
What, do we have a copy of it? What did it say?
Here we go. And council can probably give a better explanation of this, but there are certain things that are in the ordinance and in the state laws about what is required. In this particular case, it says that it's a special use permit. In the summary, it says the applicant, Amazon Retail LLC, seeks the before mentioned entitlements for the development of a one-story, 228,660 square foot mixed-use building, and it goes on and talks about the parking spaces and everything else. So
Okay, and what date did that go out?
this was published in the newspaper, in the Daily Southtown on the 22nd of December.
22nd of December?
Yes.
Because the meeting was January 6th.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Question, Steve or George, did the publication in the paper say Amazon?
It said the applicant was Amazon LLC,
And then
Amazon Retail LLC.
we had a number of requests, if I recall it right, from the press based on some of the public documents that were out in terms of the agenda and the notification, correct?
Yeah, that's how the press found out about it, because of the public notice.
And all of that preceded this post on a social media site for a political entity, correct?
Yeah, if we're talking about the post is January 2nd. Amazon public notice was December 22nd.
Yeah, I went to a Chicago public school, but I'm pretty sure that date in December is before the first date of January, but check me on that one, George. I guess I want to open this up to the board because there's a lot that Trustee Healy said. There's multiple ways to take it. We have a fact set now in front of us. There's a set of allegations, which quite frankly, I find to be inherently political, especially given what is available to the public to check in terms of who's involved with what parties on D2s and who's bringing up comments and asking about whether or not somebody's conflicted. So to Trustee Leafblad's point, if you're serious about this, take it up with the Ethics Commission, but I do want to open it up for the other trustees.
Mr.
What
Mayor.
say you? Trustee Leafblad?
Just to complete, I'm sorry, I just wanted to complete one more thing. So I just want to, George or either one of you. So you follow, I'm just wanting to make sure what happened prior to the Planning Commission meeting was that you followed the law to make sure that there was plenty of notice so that people would be aware of what was coming in Orland, what was being proposed in Orland Park.
Yeah, it followed the village to the T, and as a matter of fact, at the request of Trustee Healy, we had two sets of attorneys opine on whether we followed the village code, and those were provided previously.
Okay, and there was some time spent on this at the Planning Commission meeting as well.
The actual, yeah. Steve, how long was that?
It was very long. Well, we had other things too, so I want to say it was a few hours at least. Yeah.
It was a few hours. I watched it, I live streamed it, because as a resident of Orland Park, I know I can live stream these meetings if I can't attend because they're public, and that hundreds of pages of information was provided to the public, which I had access to as a member of the public. And I watched the entire meeting and I saw what took place there. And then subsequently, and in fact, at that meeting, weren't there some other changes or concessions that were requested of Amazon that they put, in their concept plan, that they then that they put in prior to then the village meeting? That was also about an hour-long discussion as well, right?
That is correct.
With a presentation.
Yes.
With Amazon present at both meetings, they're readily answering questions and providing information.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy, I'd like the other trustees to have their chance to speak.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Lawrence.
So I'm looking at the general process and the information that Mr. Healy is questioning, and I can't help think to myself, now this is a rhetorical question because I suppose I can't ask another trustee a question, but is Mr. Healy accusing the Plan Commission members of some ethical violation, like planning in advance that they were going to approve it versus them being independent? I didn't get that impression at all. I did watch the meeting live myself. It wasn't just us approving. They approved first. And I'm really concerned that it sounds like we're accusing the Plan Commission members of plotting to do something that, I don't know, maybe they wouldn't do for just on their own. It's just confusing to me.
Trustee Lawler?
Yeah, no, look at this, you talk of one member who is on the Plan Commission that released this, but 5 of the other 6 still voted for it, and they are not part of that Inform Orland Park that I'm aware of. But that being said, we have an ethics ordinance for a reason. I think the number is 5404 ethics ordinance. If you think that there is wrongdoing, instead of having a trial here, and accusations, file it with our ethics officer and let it go through the commission and let them investigate it to see if there was anything wrongdoing. Instead, I feel like we've wasted a lot of time on this. I'm not saying that it's not important if you feel this way, but we're talking about it, you're making accusations that haven't been investigated, and it's like, if we have an ethics ordinance, we have a process, we should follow it. We should not be having a trial here tonight at the Committee of the Whole. This should be investigated first. So I would say if you have any other accusations that you want to make about ethics complaints, file your complaint with the ethics officer and let the committee that we already have investigate it and see if there's any meat to it. But as of right now, I would say, looking at it, this went out on December 22nd. The announcement was made on January 2nd. And we still don't know. I mean, yes, it could have come from someone in the Plan Commission, or they knew and they released it. They had already read about it or whatever, and they were excited about it. I don't know. I can't speak for that person. But it's also possible that maybe this person or someone else they knew knows someone who works for Amazon and said, hey, we're coming to Orland Park, based on the Tribune post. I don't know. We don't know. But that's why we should have this investigated. That's why this should be investigated through the proper channels.
Recognized.
Just a quick thing, I think, taking in what Bill said, if in fact it went out on January 2nd, and then the meeting was the 6th, granted it was out there in the Tribune, but to say that Amazon is coming to Orland Park and then change it, Bill, you said to potentially coming to Orland Park? I don't know. I think I agree with Trustee Lawler. I think this is something that, the Ethics Committee should be taking up.
Trustee Malani?
Hey, why not? Actually, I didn't see this posting on Facebook, and honestly, I don't care what Inform Orland Park says, and probably never did. And as I said a couple weeks ago, Facebook isn't necessarily where I go for the truth, right? I come here. This is where the facts are. If you want the facts, come ask questions, stand up there, and we'll give you the facts. That's what we did. I think there was a lot of misinformation spread about this project. So what's another piece of information? Who cares? We came up here and we told the facts afterwards, right? We eliminated all of the misinformation. The Amazon project's happening, whether we like it or not now. It's went through our process. The Planning Commission approved it. The board recommended approval, and then it was approved. We followed the process. We put signs in front of the property, just like we were supposed to do as well, right? So let's stop spending time, effort, and energy on this. Move forward, and as was mentioned, if you think this is an ethics issue, send it to the ethics community, because we're wasting time up here.
Trustee Healy, do you want to be recognized again?
Yeah, I'd like to, please, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got just 4 or 5 little comments. To Trustee Lawrence's comment, I didn't accuse a conspiracy or plotting by the Plan Commission members. I don't know where you're coming up with where I inferred that, but it was just one member who was the head of the PAC that produced it. It's not a lot of people employed by the PAC, and I think she should be responsible for that. Just a couple other things to notice. It's my understanding, and I'd ask the village attorney to correct me if I'm wrong, public officials are supposed to be held to a higher standard of ethics. Is that, I mean, and we demand higher ethics even of this board. And I think that this doesn't measure up to high ethics. I don't see any all it took was a mea culpa or a self-reporting or a saying, hey, I'm going to recuse myself. No, nothing like that happened. And Trustee Malani, it seems like you're accepting a sliding scale of lower ethics. I think you should demand the best and demand the highest level of ethics. Is that. The other thing is that I did talk to the Ethics Committee lawyer this week on a different subject. And one thing he told me is that he was not sure off the top of his head. He was heading out of town for a trip, but he wasn't sure if the ethics applied to, he thought it applied to elected officials was off the top of his head. And I said, okay, well, she's not an elected official anymore, but she did have 25 years experience and this was not a rookie mistake.
Mr. Mayor, I just need to interject if I may.
You, point of order.
I can't. Point of order.
Yeah, just, Trustee Healy, I think I'd really like you to finish your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm done.
All right. Trustee Leafblad, and then I have a number of comments.
I just, I hear there's a person's name being batted around a lot because of their connection to something and then a Facebook post made by an organization. Is there any direct proof that this is the person that made that post even? Or are we just sitting, or is this just an opportunity to just slander somebody?
Trustee Leafblad, I'll take that as a rhetorical question as opposed to continuing this debate. Mr. Healy, I'm sorry. Mike, do we have the ability to move on?
You have a point, you are the presiding officer. You
All
can
right.
call it.
Trustee Healy, you've presented your fact set. I think we actually did an investigation that was so short it could have been an email, because if I'm not mistaken, staff conclusively proved, and here's the receipt from the Tribune, that this information became public in the middle of December. But the broader question, which we should tackle, is when did the village first know Amazon was interested in this property, Steve?
May. I think they made their application in May.
Late April is when they made contact with the.
Late April.
Late April.
Right.
And I think I was sworn in sometime in May, just checking my calendar dates. And so then it was moving through a process that was known to many people, including potentially being brought up by various members of the Plan Commission during some other debates, correct? Discussions. And so this has been generally out there in the media for a while. And then two, broadly, and I'd love to see the answer from the ethics attorney, how does the ethics ordinance, which I'm pretty sure, Trustee Healy, you were a main author of back in the day, how this applies in this case to political speech from an organization not directly involved in the village of Orland Park? So that's question number one, but we'll let the lawyers wrestle with that. Two, I often find that your statements are kind of willful and wanton. I'll pretend I'm a lawyer for a moment, where you were trying to damage people's reputations and potentially the reputation of the village of Orland Park. And that I hope it was a not serious question. How can there be members on this board that are associated with the PAC and still be up here voting? Oh, really? Why don't we all go to the State Board of Elections soon and take a look at who's affiliated with what organizations, and then start doling out premature judgments that are political in nature, trying to impugn the reputation of the village and or the individuals. So you've posed a question. Is there something wrong here? If you feel that strongly about it, if you think the laws were broken, if you think the laws apply, you take it up with the ethics ordinance. With that, unless there's any other comments from this board, I'd like the roll on Trustee Healy's motion. Before what?
Before we proceed, I would like to make a record of the documents that were presented on behalf of this motion. Exhibit 1 of 3 appears to be a Facebook post from Inform Orland Park. There is no date on this Facebook post. Exhibit 2 of 3 appears to be an Orland Park, a second Orland Park, dated January 2nd. Exhibit 3 of 3 appears to be a D1 from Inform Orland Park, and that is dated August 19th of 2024. The one exhibit received from Trustee Leafblad is exhibit number 1 of 1, which is a certificate of publication from the Chicago Tribune that they do hereby certify that it is the publisher for the Daily Southtown. And it states further on that this notice, which is a true copy, which is attached and published one time in the Daily Southtown, namely one time per week. The first publication of the notice was made in the newspaper, dated and published on 12/22 of '25. And the last publication of the notice was also dated on 12/22 of '25. And the notice is entitled, which we have a copy of the notice in the paper, it's quite long. It's entitled Amazon Retail Plan Development, 15901 92nd Avenue and 9600 159th Street, Orland Park, Illinois. And it's also entitled Legal Notice, Notice of Public Hearing. And the public hearing given on that date is for January 6th of 2026.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll read the motion. Everybody has the motion in their packet. Trustee Crawford. It was motioned and seconded. I believe it was motioned by Trustee Healy. It was seconded by Trustee Katsinas. Please call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas? Trustee Lawrence?
No.
Trustee Lawler?
No.
Trustee Leaflet?
No.
Trustee Malani?
Nope.
Mayor Dodge?
No. That motion failed. There's another agenda initiative. Trustee Healy?
There's two more.
Yep. Trustee Healy, you have the floor.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I've got to look up what the, recharge this. I know you're anxious to get out of here, but,
So while he's looking, I can just, it was a request from Trustee Healy where any individual trustee can direct the village clerk to, after a meeting, to do verbatim minutes of executive session.
that's correct.
Trustee Healy, would you like to make a few comments to the board before we open it up for discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to, that was a lengthy meeting after a lengthy board meeting, and I wanted to make sure I understood what the lengthy, detailed responses from the law firm were. I thought the only way to do that is through verbatim minutes. I would like to add that there's been one other time since you've been Mayor Dodge, where we did do verbatim minutes of a closed session. That was I believe May 12th for a special meeting. And verbatim minutes were prepared by that. So if you don't want to do it, I mean, hopefully my time is, I'm still employed. I've got a limited time to go, and I was hoping to get these out of the way before I got super busy, but as delaying seems to not work in my favor, but I still would like to see verbatim minutes.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Trustee Leafblad?
With regard to, because I inquired about what the law was with regard to the minutes for executive session. And so the written minutes are, subject to what Robert's Rules of Order. And then there are verbatim minutes because the meetings are recorded. And those verbatim minutes exist for a period of time after the executive session. And they are in existence until the board approves the minutes of that particular executive session. So there is an audio for, I believe, any of us to, like the board, I mean, because it's executive session, so it's got to be the board only that can listen to them to remind ourselves of what happened in the meeting. And I believe we have access to those through the clerk. Is that correct? Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
Yes, we do.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor?
Hang on. Trustee Healy. 1 minute. Are you finished, Trustee Leafblad?
Yes, I am.
Trustee Healy?
I would like to add that, talking with the village clerk today, that I realize the amount of work and I thought it could be as simple as downloading a recording and having it automatically transcribed. I don't see why that couldn't happen, but with state law as it is right now, the clerk told me that they're prevented from doing that, so I thought it would be a lot easier, and I'm going to withdraw my motion for the verbatim minutes.
Got it. Understood. Trustee Healy withdrew that motion. Thank you, sir. There's one more. Trustee Lawler?
Yeah, mine was regarding legal information involving litigation in the village. I would like to table that for a later date. We've discussed a lot of things tonight, and, I want to, have some discussions with George and, other staff about this going forward. So if it's okay, I would like to withdraw that for now and table it for a later date.
Procedurally, he didn't make a motion.
He didn't make, the motion isn't out there, but are you withdrawing, are you not presenting it? Because if you're not presenting it, you're withdrawing it and can bring it back. But if you're making a motion to table, that would require a vote.
Do you want to withdraw and bring it back, John?
I'll withdraw.
Does that work?
That works.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee.
We'll now proceed to non-scheduled citizens and visitors for public comment on items relevant to village business.
Is there anybody who would like to address the committee of the whole before we take a few-minute break and then come back for the board meeting? Okay, hearing none.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Katsinas?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn. It's been seconded for the committee of the whole. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Katsinas? Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Lawrence?
Aye.
Trustee Lawler?
Aye.
Trustee Leaflet?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Mayor Dodge.
Aye. We'll be back in about 5 minutes.
We are adjourned at 7:56.